Welcome in, Ravens Flock. This is Jordan with Ravens Flash Report. And this is after another extremely exciting, high scoring, and nearly disastrous Ravens victory, this time over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ravens win it 41-31. And the story of this game, I feel like, comes down to a number of different things. The first, of course, being that Lamar Jackson has solidified himself as the MVP frontrunner. And there really shouldn't be any topic of debate on that front. I mean, for a while, obviously, Josh Allen, he looked like he was doing things, and then he ran through the buzzsaw that was the Ravens, and he had a good game. But Lamar has just been consistent. He has just been dominant. And whenever they face tough competition, Lamar shows up. Lamar always plays well, not only in primetime games and not only against NFC teams, but he always plays well when the team needs him to play well. So, running through his stats real quick, I mean, again, it's just not only just the efficiency, 22 passing attempts, 17 completions, but 281 yards, 5 touchdowns, no picks, and sacked twice. And that was only on the first drive. After that, the blocking did get better. The pass blocking was much better after that first drive. The run blocking was fine. It was a little suspect a couple of times, especially when it seemed like it was very obviously we were going to run. But I mean, passer rating of 158.1. What more can you ask for? Again, MVP front runner Lamar Jackson doing it everywhere on the ground. He had 9 rushing attempts, 52 yards. He did have that one. It was attributed as a fumble when he threw a backward pass to Zay Flowers, and then that was just again disaster of a play. But again, other than that, Derrick Henry 15 attempts for 169 yards, which Derrick did have. He had a couple of really big runs, and obviously he did have a receiving touchdown as well. So he keeps that streak alive. He's got 7 games in a row to start the season where he's had at least one touchdown, keeping that franchise record alive. But I mean, even his 15 attempts to start the game, they were talking about in the broadcast too. He just wasn't being used very much. He had 4 rushing attempts for, I think, 23 yards to start the first half. And then the second half, I mean, he had an 81-yard run, that crazy sideline run. And then he had also the near touchdown. It would have been a touchdown run if he didn't step out of bounds, which that went for 39 yards. I don't know how much I want to see Lamar Jackson out in front of Derrick Henry, stiff-arming guys and blocking guys. But again, Lamar's a competitor. He's gonna do what he can to get the play made, even if it's not him. Zay Flowers, really quiet day from him. He had one running attempt for 19 yards, which is a little pitch play. Hill, 5 rushing attempts, 4 yards. But the passing game was just another display of how dangerous this team can be on offense. You can shut down Flowers. He had 1 catch on 1 target for 11 yards. He did leave the game in the first half. He came back in, but I don't know if they were just being careful with him. But he only had 1 catch for 11 yards. Bateman and Andrews and Hill contributed here too, but Bateman and Andrews, again, just for the second week in a row, Bateman goes 4 for 4 for 121 yards and a touchdown, and he had 2 huge plays as well. He had a 59-yarder as his longest, which that was the touchdown, but then the 56-yarder that brought them just basically almost to the goal line there. So huge game from Bateman, and seeing the deep connection with Bateman and seeing that chemistry with Lamar and Bateman continue to work, and they continue to push the ball to him. I think that's excellent. I mean, obviously it's excellent when he's scoring touchdowns, but it's an excellent thing for Todd Monken to expand this offense and make as many players as possible as dangerous as possible. Justice Hill finishes receiving game anyway, 3 for 3 for 44 yards and a touchdown. Andrews finishes 4 for 4, 41 yards and 2 touchdowns. So again, maybe last game, I don't know, man. It still feels like he started off the season not 100%. And I definitely think the conditioning wasn't there. He had that car accident thing in the preseason, which, he says he's fine, but it just seemed like he had a very slow start to his season, and now he's really starting to get back to the Mark Andrews that he was. In the first couple of games, he looked like he had a little bit of a hitch in his giddy up. He looked like he had a little bit of a, I don't know. He just seemed clunky. He didn't seem like he was as smooth of an athlete as he was. And then in this game and last week's game, he looked like Mark Andrews again. Um, Nelson Aguilar 1 for 20. He was targeted twice, 1 for 20. Likely 2 out of 4 targets, 17 yards. Kolar gets 14 yards. Derrick Henry, again, like I said, he continues that streak of 7 games in a row with a touchdown for the Ravens. He had 1 catch for 13 yards, that beautiful touchdown. Um, but honestly, just again, from Lamar Jackson running the ball, he was decisive in his runs, and beyond those 2 sacks, honestly, the pass protection held up well. He was hitting guys that were open. He was hitting guys on difficult targets, but even the pass to Kolar, the one pass to Kolar, for a second, I thought it was going to be picked off or at least tipped or something like that. Goes right over the defender's head, right into Kolar's hands, right on the sideline. It was just one of those things where beautiful touch on the pass. Tucker, just working way down the stat sheet here. Tucker goes 2 for 2, gets a 28-yarder, and then he hits a 52-yarder. So once again, great to see that consistency. Great to see, that they're still, I mean, of course they're still trotting him out there. Obviously they believe in him too, but good to see that he's again working through whatever issues he was having earlier in the season. If it was mechanical, if it was, whatever it was, whatever the issues were, he seems to have figured them out, because hitting a 52-yarder, not in Ravens Stadium, but it is an outdoor stadium. That was, again, is excellent to see. On the defensive side, there's a lot to get into. Some really good things and some not amazing things. This was, again, another game where the Ravens offense was dominating, just absolutely dominating Tampa Bay. And there was, they showed a stat, I believe it was in the fourth quarter, the beginning of the fourth quarter, where the Ravens had scored on 6 consecutive drives. So, I mean, we were just doing whatever we wanted with Tampa Bay. And shout out to Todd Monken, who had an excellently called game again, just picking this defense apart. Everybody was stepping up, making the catches when their number was called. So that helps. Obviously, you can't go to all these guys if they're not making the plays when they're called upon. But excellent called game by Todd Monken. But the defense is just, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what it is that is keeping them from being consistent. Roquan Smith ends the day with 18 tackles, 11 solo. Kyle Hamilton follows him up with 11 and 7 solos. He has a pass deflection. Trenton Simpson, a very active day for him. Both good and bad plays from him as well. But, I mean, just seems like there was a lot of plays left out on the field again. And not even just from a secondary standpoint, which we sort of know how the Ravens secondary is at this point of the season. They seem to be better in some areas, and still there's these gaps where, and if you're a Ravens fan, you probably heard Cole Jackson on his Road Raiders channel talk about this, but our combination coverages where we're doing a bit of man, we're doing a bit of zone, and defense is just finding holes in that defense. Offenses are finding holes in that defense. That's where the first touchdown to Mike Evans was. It was just they were passing him off and nobody picked it up. And it was just a weak spot in the defense. But the fact of the matter is that this is the NFL, and quarterbacks are going to find those soft spots. They're going to take advantage of them, and they're doing it week in and week out against this Ravens defense. And with the way Lamar is playing, it hasn't killed us yet, but there's going to be a game where something is going to go wrong for the offense, because you can't consistently do it every single week. I mean, Lamar does, but there is going to be a time where the defense is going to allow more than the offense can keep up with. And that's a problem. It actually reminds me of the Chiefs from a few years ago when their offense was incredible, but their defense was also letting up an insane amount of points. I think the Saints were like that a few years ago as well. But Marlon Humphrey, my guy, just excellent day from him. he did leave with the knee injury. He didn't seem, what do we know from just watching him walk off the field? But um, it didn't seem to be as severe as some of the other injuries that we saw this game. This game was honestly, yes, Sharon, absolutely. Jackson 5, absolutely. My wife came walking in the door at the end of the game, and I was shouting that to her through the window, and she was like, "What does that mean?" I was like, "You don't remember from the 2019?" So, yes, but it was excellent day from Lamar. Um, but yeah, the Marlon Humphrey, I mean, 2 picks. He's now got 4 on the season. But this game was absolutely just a lot of bad injuries. I mean, Tyke Smith, one of their safeties, a guy I really liked coming out of Georgia in the draft, he gets ruled out with a concussion, or at least he was being evaluated for concussion. Obviously, Evans, who, you know, everything in hindsight, right? But I don't even think he should have been playing in this game. And with the way that their offense was doing damage to us on those first couple of drives, didn't even really seem like they needed him. They just didn't really go to Godwin very much. But then, obviously, with less than a minute to go, the injury to Godwin, that was just, I mean, it was just gutting. It was really bad. And, you hear him on the broadcast and like, we can't even show you that replay. And it's just like, because the play before that was Barbarius Washington coming in and sacking Baker Mayfield. And they were talking about, it's a 10-point game, but like, you're probably not scoring 10 points. Having said that, I I think the most frustrating part for me in this game was the onside kick. I forget which game I was watching this weekend or yesterday, but the team was attempting an onside kick, and I think it was the Browns and Cincinnati game. Browns were trying an onside kick, and they talked about how only one onside kick had been successful so far this season. And I was like, well, that's us from the Week 2 Raiders game. And yes, it is absolutely, Sharon. It's horrible to see them get hurt, especially because this Tampa Bay team, like, they're a good team, and they seem to be at least the most consistent, the most dangerous team in the NFC South. Um, but seeing Godwin get hurt like that and on such a seemingly unnecessary play, um, it sucked. It sucked to see Baker's garbage. I mean, again, it's one of those things where that there's some quarterbacks where we play them well. Again, I think of the Josh Allen game. I mean, he was coming in that game. I think he was averaging 133 passer rating when he came into that game, and he left with like an 86. So sometimes we this defense does play them really well against the against certain quarterbacks. But Baker, I mean, on the first drive, he was schmoving a little bit. He was getting out of the pocket. But I think the first thing that was really killing us was the running back screens, because, I mean, let me check his numbers real quick, but I know for a fact that, yeah, I mean, Rachaad White had 6 receptions for 71 yards and 2 touchdowns receiving. So, Derrick Henry MVP. I mean, Derrick Henry, it's funny because if you just look at the box score of this game, and I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but if you look at the box score of the game, it absolutely looks like another game where, I mean, 15 attempts, 169 yards. He's averaging 11.3. And it's like, yeah, that's an amazing, amazing game. But then you look at Jackson's numbers and it's like, oh, and if you watch the game again, there's like 2 really big runs by Derrick. Not really sure what the Ravens coaching staff were doing with that utilization of Henry in this game. I don't know if they were saving him for the fourth quarter or whatever their choice was to do that, but Lamar played well enough. But the Ravens defense against these receiving backs, it's been bad all season, but this game was horrible. I mean, this is how we were getting beat on third down. It's how the Buccaneers were staying on the field, basically. And the Ravens have used it themselves. Obviously, Hill is he comes to mind. He had a great day today, but it was just terrible what the defense was allowing with that. And then again, the middle of the field, the tight ends, it was just difficult. But yes, I agree. The defense has to get better. Yeah, at the end of the day, they a lot of the opposing quarterbacks, a lot of their stats they do come from garbage time. Um, but again, looking at Dak's numbers, looking at Gardner Minshew's numbers when we played against them, garbage time seems to matter because I mean, I was ready to call it a night. You know, I mean, I was going to still watch the rest of the game, but I mean, midway through the fourth quarter, we had a huge lead. And then all of a sudden, that onside kick, they go down and score. Luckily, they didn't get the 2-point conversion on that one. But again, it's just like this Ravens defense. If not for the offense, the Ravens defense in this game really seemed to have trouble putting away the Buccaneers offense. Um, But again, I mean, just a phenomenal play, a phenomenal game from Lamar Jackson. Yeah, I mean, Baker's numbers at the end of the day, he goes 31 of 45 for 370 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, sacked 3 times. And his passer rating says 97.5, but honestly, if you watch this whole game, did not feel like he was at a 97.5. He made some plays, but it was more him getting the ball into the hands of his playmakers rather than him making tight window throws or him making, excellent throws down the field. I mean a lot of it was just some guys were open and then some guys were making yards after the catch plays, that's what I was really worried about going into this game was other than Chris Godwin, a lot of these players were great after the catch. And that's sort of my issue is that there was a lot of good tackling up the line of scrimmage, but out in the middle of the field, it seemed like a lot of teams were getting more yardage on us after the catch than they should have been anyway. With how our defense is. Um, but yeah, I mean, I say all this, and it sounds like I feel like I'm complaining about it, but we're 5-2. We've won 5 in a row. And this is another game where we put up over 40 on a team. And it just feels good. I mean, it feels great that this Ravens offense is moving well with a bunch of different players. I mean, seeing Bateman get 121 yards and a touchdown, phenomenal, especially with 2 of those plays being deep shots. I mean, it feels like it's been forever since we've had I don't even want to say that this is a consistent thing yet, but to literally have the viability of deep shots with Bateman is just phenomenal. And again, Hill continues to be impactful. Andrews continues to be impactful. I thought Likely would have a bit more of a space in this game. I thought he was going to have a few more plays. But yes, and to your point, Jesus, his defense very complacent when they have a lead. Absolutely, it still feels like we're playing very safe on defense, and I'm not really sure if that is a. I don't want to say it's a Zach Orr thing, but it does feel like he's worried about getting beat deep, so they allow a lot of underneath stuff, which, again, the way that teams have been moving the ball on us, that doesn't seem to be working either. But at the same time, with our corners, especially with Marlon going down in the game, I wouldn't want to trust our safeties right now on covering the deep ball. That would be another really big concern of mine. So I don't know. But I think the biggest thing to take away from this game is the offense and Lamar. And just, again, we're still firing on all cylinders, it feels like. It really feels like this offense is in a excellent rhythm right now. The run game is benefiting from the pass game. I was talking to a buddy of mine right before the game, and the complementary football that the Ravens are playing right now is hands down the best in the league, in my opinion. And obviously, as a Ravens fan, that sounds extremely biased, and I don't care that it is. If you look at the numbers that are coming off of this offense and you look at how they're getting them, if you look by the play calling and the consistency, we're not just running on first down, running on second down, passing on third down. We're mixing it up, and it's killing defenses. And that is why I think this Ravens team, I mean, we've gone through what many consider to be the gauntlet for this season. The beginning of the season was a very rough patch of games. There's a lot of difficult opponents, and it's the NFL. So the rest of the season, we're going to see a lot of tough opponents too. There's no There's no weeks off. But trade for Crosby. I mean, the pass rush, that is a good point, though. The pass rush is, I don't want to say it's lacking because, again, KVN, he's still putting a lot of pressure on them. They're getting a lot of double teams on him. I'd love to see a little bit more out of Owe. I still feel like he's not really advancing in the way that I thought he was going to at the start of the season. And I mean, again, I'm glad that my guy Barbarius was in there and got the sack. But he also had another ball go straight through his hands. This is what, the second week in a row where he had a near, should have been an interception. But again, I mean, I'm not going to nitpick at the defense for not having another interception. When it comes to the injuries, though, I do hope we hear good news for Humphrey. And same thing. I mean, Zay got injured, but he came back in the game. He seemed to just be in a bit of pain on the sideline. And same thing with Brandon Stevens. So, yeah, I mean, and the penalties were an issue too. And they brought it up. I mean, some of the penalties, I don't like to get into too much of the. It almost feels like politics to get into the penalties because of the frequency. And I mean, I think that last drive before halftime was just insane. And every time they went back and they showed the penalty that was called, yes, a lot of them were technically correct, but you see those on every play. You see other offenses. I forget who said it was. I mean, it's been said several times by anybody that's been an offensive lineman. There's holding on pretty much every play. It's just whether or not it's egregious enough to affect the play. And a lot of times it feels like, I don't want to say that I don't want to say that the refs are against the Ravens. I don't think it's something that's that obvious that they would be doing that, but it certainly feels like there's a lot of calls that go against the Ravens that seem a little ticky-tack. But can I think of possible trades on defense or offense? I mean, for me, I find myself falling in the camp of wanting to get more help in the secondary. And the reason for that is just our safeties. And I would love some pass rush help, but we did just get Ngakoue, and I want to see how they continue to work with him. I mean, we have KVN, we have Ngakoue, we have Owe, we have Ojabo. Adisa Isaac was a healthy scratch for this game, so I mean, we've got guys on the pass rushing side of things, and I want to let those young guys still develop. So I don't know how many snaps I want to take from them, but as far as Eddie Jackson, as far as Marcus Williams, I mean, Eddie Jackson, he didn't sign to a crazy big deal. Marcus Williams, we've got a lot of money tied up in his contract. So again, I don't want to say that money decides who plays, but you want to see return on that value. If you're not seeing it though, and you want to get wins, and that is your valve, that's where you're finding all these issues, then, maybe it is time to see Ardarius and Marcus Williams. Maybe it's time to see a little bit more Bo Braid. But again, we also have to trust that the coaches, what they're seeing in practice, if they're seeing different stuff than we are about maybe this guy's not ready yet. We saw a lot of good stuff from Bo Braid and Ardarius in preseason, but again, that's against other depth guys. So we'll see where that stands. But I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. If you haven't already, if you enjoyed the live stream, I appreciate you guys coming out. This was by far my most successful live stream, so I really appreciate it. Thank you guys in the chat. This has been a lot of fun. This was a fun game. Scary ending, which is typical if you're a Ravens fan. But again, 5-2 at the end of the day. Lamar Jackson continues to look great. This offense looks great. Derrick Henry looks great. And we'll just hope that those injuries aren't anything serious. But I hope to see you guys later on this week. I'll be coming out with a preview for the Browns game, which we got coming up next week. But have a good night, everyone. Stay safe out there. Go Ravens.